What's going on? Welcome to episode 13 of In the AM with MC. If you just joining us, get on board. This is the 13th episode of thousands, probably. Who knows? Um, I think we're gonna get our first guest on soon. Probably not in the next two or three episodes, but perhaps in the next five. Looking forward to rapping sports with whoever I get on here. But without further ado, it's almost March Madness time. It's March. I'm looking at the clock right now. It is March 11th. Throw that thing on there. Yes, sir. It is March 11th. And it's always funny to me that March Madness, I said it's probably on here already, that March Madness starts in late March and carries into April. It's really March, April Madness, but who cares? Because it's so fun. It's one of the events of your lifetime, in my opinion. In the fashions it shows up in, similar to the Olympics. And you know, I'm really not into the betting of sports and a lot of other things that I think take away from the overall enjoyment of the purity of sports. So I guess you could say I'm a sports purist in a lot of ways when I consider enjoyment. And being able to just make a bracket, have your team and then watch the madness unfold is just so beautiful. And in recent years, a lot of people have been watching the women's basketball brackets as well. And I've always been, a fan of both, but I think that now at least there's way more programming. When I was growing up, we had a little box TV, probably the size of my laptop, to be honest, and we had, the channels you have in the antenna. And we had cable on and off, but even when we had cable, TBS and ESPN and all those major networks were broadcasting the men's games, and the women's games would be lucky to be on ESPN too, where nowadays, a lot of streaming services exist, a lot of ways to watch games exist, but still there's a lot of lack of coverage. But that being said, I'm looking at the kind of the outlook going in. There were a lot of at-large bids. So at-large bids are accomplished via conference tournament success, right? So if you win the conference tournament, and if you win the regular season, I believe you get some sort of prize, like a monetary prize from the conference, and you have those bragging rights, and then you probably get other perks, per conference per basis that I'm just not aware of. But you really want to win the tournament because the tournament determines the at-large bid, and for mid-major conferences and in some cases other conferences, that's your only chance to really go to the tournament. You're not really going to go just based on the team that you are if you're per se like Furman. And Furman is a team that when they get in the tournament, they always, they play well. But that's not a team that they're going to look at and say, you're one of the strongest 40 or so teams we have, or not even 40, 30 or so teams we have remaining after we do all the at-large bids. Um, on my paper, I have UCLA over USC, USC or yeah, USC over South Carolina, South Carolina over UCLA, LSU over UCLA, and Texas, but Texas over South Carolina. So there's a lot of teams as far as the women's basketball is concerned that don't want to see each other, and it has a lot to do with matchups. So why does USC not want to see UCLA? Because Lauren Betts has the feet and the length to contest a lot of Juju Watkins' shots on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, or sorry, excuse me, a lot of Juju shots on the offensive side of the ball. And then defensively, she creates problems, especially when she can stretch her range out to about 17, 19 feet. Because from there, you know, um, you can't play defense the way that you want to. She stretches everything out. They're very well coached. UCLA is. Juju looked like she had their number for the majority of the season, but then in this most recent game, they lost. So I think that they don't want to see UCLA again. And again, that's a matchup thing. However, I think they would take out um, South Carolina. And I think South Carolina would beat UCLA, but I think it depends on Watkins, right? Watkins is probably not available, but if she is, then look out. But Watkins is probably not available. I think that's the difference maker for them defensively. But they just have too much, right? And I think Dawn Staley has had another back and forth situation with Malaysia Fawali, similar to what she had last season. But now I strongly believe that she's just going to unleash her, and teams are not going to know how to play with that pace because they're so well conditioned. They have so much length. You have Joyce Edwards, who is a phenomenal freshman in the SEC, the second best freshman in a year where the first best freshman, the freshman of the year, had two 50-point games, pretty unheralded. Um, and then Texas, Texas did beat Dawn and them, but I think LSU, even with Kim Mulkey not being her fiery self as of late due to a death in the family and some injuries going up and down their team, when they're healthy, LSU is a problem. And I think that they have too much offensive output. And my favorite player in the WNBA is, or excuse me, I keep saying it, in women's college basketball is Anissa Morrow. She gets to it. She don't play. She's been doing that since her days playing for DePaul, and that's one of the best transfer portal pickups you could imagine if you are the LSU Tigers. Some sleepers in women's college basketball, definitely Duke. Duke is very well coached. I was in my apartment gym the other day, and I stopped to watch some of Duke and NC State because I was trying to watch some of Sinai Rivers, who I hope is drafted by the Los Angeles, excuse me, by the Las Vegas Aces. But yeah, Duke was giving them the BTA. TCU for obvious reasons, right? Haley Van Lith is a player of the year. Sedona Prince is like 24, maybe. And she's just really tall, has length. She can stretch the floor. Their whole lineup is on the older side, like they're all really experienced and they're hungry, So I think TCU, that's another team that could upset some people in a tournament. So look out for those teams in the tournament. I'm excited for that tournament to get up and running. I'll probably submit 2 or 3 brackets. We'll see what it's looking like. On to the men. Alabama and Auburn went down to the wire the other day. Sears hit the floater as the buzzer expired to give Alabama the victory. But what will that look like if they come across each other again? I'm not sure. I think Alabama is really hard to beat. Grant Nelson is a player that popped off the page to me when he transferred over there from North Dakota State because he reminds me of a guy you play in the park. He's big, strong, and he's a bully. And he's like humble about it when he wants to be. If he wants to be humble about it, yeah, he'll get the bucket and walk away. But sometimes, it'll be like and one or something else that I can't say on the show, you know. And they have a lot of length. Another well-coached team, Nate Oates, right? And guard play is as good as anybody in the league. Tennessee, Zakai Ziegler, back-to-back defensive player of the year in the SEC. Tennessee is a team that is missing a little bit of scoring. You can tell that they can hang with anybody defensively, but can they score the pill with anybody offensively? The answer is no. And that's why they can't play a St. John's or a Duke or even a UConn when they get hot. I think UConn is not going to miss the tournament like people will say they are. Even if they lose out, I still think the committee is going to find a way to give them a really bad, like a 13 or a 12 seed. You know, um, I still think that there's a way. I mean, UConn is UConn, you know. It's hardly the tournament without UConn. Teams that can sneak in and upset in the men's bracket, Missouri, Texas Tech, Michigan State. I think in the mid-major side, you have High Point, Norfolk State, or South Carolina State are most likely going to win out in the MEAC. I think either one of those schools is realistically a school that can upset if they get a solid seed and if their players are hitting shots and if they stick to whatever their coach's game plan is for that respective day. Kyrie Irving is done for the year. Somebody somewhere just fell down and started crying. My good friend Bryce just fell down and started crying. Biggest Kyrie fan I know. He actually plays so much like Kyrie. It's scary. You can tell he loves him. And yeah, like Kyrie out for the year. Um, Out for a while, probably. He has a torn ACL or Achilles. I think it's both. Um, Very similar to his mentor Kobe Bryant. He tore it, went to the free throw line, made his free throws, and then he like limps to the locker room. And it's just so rough to see for him at this stage in his career because he's playing such flawless basketball. He's in a dying breed of player because there's only so many players, and I always talk about this. There's only so many players who are 6'1", 6 foot below who are in the NBA. And you see it fluctuate. It's very similar to in the NFL how they tried to move away from smaller receivers, especially in the emergences of the AJ Browns and the DK Metcalfs, and seeing what Megatron can do over the course of a full year, and seeing how a lot of tight ends have emerged in passing offenses. A lot of teams have tried to move away from the smaller receivers, but then you see burners, right? Guys who are like 5'9", 5'10", 160s, like a Xavier Worthy. I know, not a great person to bring up right now, but stick with me. Who's a burner who can contribute to your team, and then you have guys who are like small and compact who have to kind of go against other guys who are small and compact. You know, yeah, NFL, NBA, wild places. But I still have to say Kyrie Irving is in dying breed because there's Kyrie, there's Donovan Mitchell, there's John Morant. Those are three guys off the top of my head who are 6 foot or 6'1", who are, contributing in the NBA at a high level. It's really hard to push yourself to think past that. The prototypical NBA player nowadays is the build of a Luka Doncic, the build of a Giannis, the build of a LeBron, like the build of a KD. Like those guys are normal nowadays. You look at Harper, you look at Flag, you look at Paolo Banchero, Tyron Stokes. You can go up and down, like from the mid levels of grassroots AAU, and similarly to wherever that equivalent is in European basketball, like 14U or 15U, uh, because those guys, it's just funny. Like they don't get pushed in towards the post as much. Like it was when I was growing up, it was definitely like once you reach a certain height or a certain weight or both, you're going to play with your back to the basket primarily. You're going to focus on getting rebounds, and the offense is not necessarily going to flow through you. But now it's different because if you're that height, but you have some wiggle to you, you have some athleticism, then it's like, okay, like we can turn this into something and it'll look like boom, 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 boom. And that's the reality. So Kyrie Irving is playing flawless or was playing flawless basketball in a time where like he's not, you know, the main person in the league anymore. One person that I'd never really see compared to Kyrie, and it's probably because Kyrie Irving shoots the ball way better than he does, like his shooting splits, his ability to shoot the ball, his three ball. But Monte Ellis, I feel like as far as his downhill attacking ability, his ability to stop on the dime and shoot the midi, his center of gravity, right, and his size, I think Kyrie and Monte Ellis really do resemble each other. And Monte Ellis is in like Stephon Marbury and like Steve Francis, like that's the NBA that Kyrie Irving comes from that no longer exists. And so now he's injured, and it is really like the fall of a Titan. Like it really does suck to see that. If you're a Mavericks fan, I'm not really sure where you go from here, right? You have him out, you have AD out, you have Olivier. Olivier. Yeah, I think Prosper. Yeah, 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 yeah. The Frenchman. They got a French 7 footer. He out. Derek Lively is out. Daniel Gafford is out. So I think Jaden Hardy is out. Oh my God. So if you're a Mavericks fan, where do you go from here realistically? I don't know. And now you have Mark Cuban going on podcast talking about basically the deal didn't happen under his watch, and his brother tweeting stuff out talking about the deal was just this whoop de whoop, trying to simplify it and take themselves out of it. Uh, and it's just wild to see because it's like you still own part of the team. Like we see you, like you still own part of the team, brother, man. And that's all I have on the NBA today. But oh, actually, real quick, just before I get to the NFL and free agency, the first day of free agency finished, and there was a lot of splashes going around in the league. But LeBron James down with a groin injury, out for 1 to 2 weeks, will be reassessed. He goes down every year in the last couple of years with a very similar injury. Um, I don't want to say I think he's milking it. I actually think it's the opposite. I think it hurts a lot. But my question is, how quickly is LeBron James going to be healthy? Because Look at how good I think he's like salivating at the prospect of how good the Lakers can be, aka winning that fifth title this year. Because yeah, it might just break down his body. It might just be a kamikaze mission. And I think he knows that, but he's like, but I can submit myself. And he can do one, and he'll either finish this year on and go out on top, or he'll just do one more year next year, as like that vet on the team and just chill on the end of the bench and just run his numbers up, which I know he would love to do, you know. Um, but yeah, shout out Bron, shout out Kyrie. Hopefully they end up back together one day. Who knows? All right. NFL free agency day one. Let's talk about the New England Patriots. So the Patriots are a team that had money to spend and started spending it. They started throwing it at guys and not recklessly, but they are paying, you know. I think that there's a difference, and it's like they're not like, oh, we're just gonna pay for whoever's on the market. It's like we're gonna identify guys on the market. We're gonna give them attractive numbers, attractive contracts. What the biggest thing I noticed about most of the contracts that the Patriots are giving out is that the majority of them are guaranteed money. So even if you don't work out, um, like if I'm a player, right? Like I get most of my money. And if I'm the team, then I can move their contract off the books easier because if I have a 3-year 45, but 32 million is guaranteed, most of that is going to be a signing bonus. So it's really just 13 left that you have on the books for this player over 3 years. So you can get them off the books easier, right? Um, and you don't want that, but that's just kind of a reality. And so the Patriots got I think my favorite player they got was Milton Williams, the nose tackle, and we got to understand this is variables. This is variables Patriots now. Like this ain't Belichick's. This ain't Gerard Mayo who's trying to be Belichick, right? Everyone talks about that how people who come from the Belichick tree try to be Belichickian in a way that they simply cannot. And I think that even probably goes to his own sons because his sons are coaching right underneath him. And it's great to think like, yeah, I'm close to Pops, but at the same time, you got to think like they're probably tried to be a little too much like him somewhere else. It didn't work. They came back. You had the one son, Steve, who ended up being a DC at Washington, and he was very successful. But before that, right? Think about where he was before that. Um, so yeah, Patriots got Milt Williams, paid money for a lot of these other guys. I see a lot of the holes on their team starting to fill up. They by draft are probably going to go after a receiver, like a dominant receiver for Drake May. It's a lot that he can do with the ball. I think a dominant receiver, dominant running back. Um, they just got Harold Landry, outside linebacker, for a good price. But I think, and they still have Kyle Duggar, I believe, unless I'm wrong. Um, so I think maybe like another like rangy kind of safety, stretch the defense out laterally, but we'll see. The Philadelphia Eagles, wow, that word destroyed me. The Philadelphia Eagles lost a lot of their pieces. They just won a championship like not long ago. Like you could turn the TV on and probably catch a rerun of somebody shotgunning a beer at the parade. They just won a championship and they just lost all of these dudes on their team. Josh Sweat to the Cardinals for 4 years, $76 million. Really big here for them is they actually traded CJ Gardner Johnson. So they're gonna cut James Bradbury. I think they're either gonna cut Slay or trade Slay, but they're trading CJ Gardner Johnson to the Houston Texans. I think that's a great trade for them because they got a third round or first they got a first round player in Kenyon Green, and I think they got a pick swap as well. Gardner Johnson's a great piece though. I think maybe the concerns with him are age or the fact that you already have so many guys in the secondary. Like, so even though they're young, like they're two of their best players are rookies. So if they draft another Quinyon Mitchell type guy, Cooper DeJean type guy, then they're set in the secondary for a couple years before they have to start paying guys and making the money for Nagel. But Howie Roseman is clearly very good at that. Justin Fields to the New York Jets hurt me. I saw Justin Fields to New York in my phone and I stood up and it said Jets and I sat back down. I thought it was the Giants. I thought Justin Fields was finally coming home to the New York Giants to play with his buddy Kayvon Thibodeau. But alas, he is going to the Jets. And I love this move for him because he gets to play with Garrett Wilson. Garrett Wilson is one of the definitions of a security blanket and a sure thing. 1,000 yards every year he's been in the league. Sticky hands. Seems like a good down to earth guy, but he also played with Justin Fields at Ohio State. Um, they have other weapons up and down. I think and this ties directly into Aaron Rodgers, right? Because it seems ever so more likely that Aaron Rodgers will either end up with the Pittsburgh Steelers or the New York Giants. More likely the latter. I still hope not, which I said on the last episode, and I stand by. Aaron Rodgers had what the Giants are building last year on the Jets and did not produce. He had a star number one receiver, Garrett Wilson, aka League Neighbors, right? He had a defense that was the Giants just signed Paulson Adebo to a pretty solid contract for a guy who was the one or two cornerback on the market, who's 25 years old, coming off a broken femur for the New Orleans Saints. They had Sauce Gardner, they had DJ Reed, they had Quentin Williams, they had a bunch of guys who should have made the defense, you know, strong enough that Aaron Rodgers was not trying to be Houdini on offense. And so I don't like the Aaron Rodgers to New York smoke, but Justin Fields to the Jets seems really promising. Um, and him and Breece Hall and as a backfield, I like that. I really do. I love Breece Hall. He's one of my favorite players in the entire NFL. DJ Reed went to the Lions. The Lions were in desperate need of some cornerback help, especially after Terrion Arnold suffered an injury. DJ Reed is a player who can play both. He can play corner or safety. But he is, in my opinion, every bit as good as Sauce Gardner, if not better. Charvarius Ward to the Colts. He got good money. He got the money that I think he was worth. He wanted some more. It was pretty open and clear that he had a contract dispute with the San Francisco 49ers. But to see him get this money from the Colts only bolsters their secondary. The Colts secondary is lights out. I think that's their strongest defensive unit, their strongest unit on their team. And the question just remains, what are they going to do with Anthony Richardson? Because it's clear that they don't really believe in him. They give Daniel Jones like competitive money. They didn't give him backup money. They gave him like, you're competing for the starting job money. He's a similar build to AR, but I mean, he literally is a similar build. He plays the same way. It's just like they're probably trying to see if he stays healthy and if he does what they want him to do. You got to understand, like, yes, what Anthony Richardson is supposed to be is nowhere close to what Daniel Jones is supposed to be. But look at what they currently are. They're 6'5", 240, 250, right? They run the football. They have design run plays. They throw the ball downfield. They both struggle throwing the ball in the middle, right? And they're both in offenses that have them do things based off timing and stuff like that. Like it's more similar than you think. Like Daniel Jones is closer to an Anthony Richardson type quarterback than he is a Sam Darnold type quarterback. If you have Daniel Jones drop back and throw 40 times, you will lose the game. But if you have him throw 25 to 29 times and run 11 to 13 times, you will be a successful team, in my opinion. But yeah, New York, it was just too much going on for him. I don't think that he's gonna go because he just signed with the Colts, right? Like I said, I don't think he's gonna go to the Colts and be God's gift. But I think like don't be surprised if he starts to have some semblance of success. Um, the biggest thing in Indianapolis is Caitlin Clark. Paulson Adebo and Javon Holland both signed with the New York Giants. That's awesome. You have those two. You have Tyler Nubin, Cordell Flott, Drew Phillips. I think the thing about Tay Banks is that I would cut him. I don't even want to give him a chance to compete for the job. I think you draft the guy, just cut him. We have players across that we hit. We really just need to draft at this point a D lineman, maybe a receiver, a linebacker, and then a corner. So that's the first 4 rounds. Yeah, y'all could find a way to get busy with that. But yeah, the final move that I want to discuss is Davante Adams to the LA Rams. Right as I was discussing on the last episode about the Rams possibly needing like a T. Higgins type guy, they give money to Davante Adams. And I think it's interesting that they gave him so much because knowing what McVay likes in his offense, I don't see Tay Adams doing the short stuff. Like I don't see him doing all of the motions, and I don't see it. At this age, like I feel like it's a little bit taxing. I feel like he just wants to go out and ball, and it's also going to be a lot on his body. But at the same time, this could really work. Like he can find effective plays and touches for him, just like Odell Beckham. This can really work. We can see it. And hopefully for them it works, but not better than the New York Giants. This is episode 13, lucky number 13. Thank you for tuning in with me in the AM with MC. Enjoy the day.